Chosen one, this moment isn't a coincidence. This video didn't just show up in your feed, it was sent. And if your spirit is already tingling, your breath a little deeper, your chest a little heavier, that's not anxiety, that's alignment. Divine timing has just cracked open around you, and what you're about to hear is more than information. It's a prophetic revelation. This is your wake-up call from the spiritual realm. Not a whisper this time, but a trumpet. You're standing at the edge of a sacred portal, and heaven is leaning in, waiting to see how you respond. There are moments in your life that will define everything. 3 of those moments, 3 specific prophetic days, are closer than you think. These aren't just days on a calendar. They are divine appointments, cosmic intersections where time and eternity collide. They are the days when the veil thins, when the hand of God reaches down, when destiny whispers your name. But here's the warning. If you ignore these days, you will regret it. Not because God is punishing you, but because you'll miss what was already written in your divine blueprint. This is why the spirit realm has sent this message to you right now. You've been feeling the shift, the restlessness, the strange silence that feels pregnant with something you can't name. You've been wondering why your dreams have been intense, why people are acting strange, why the old things no longer satisfy. That's not random. That's divine timing preparing your spirit for what's about to be revealed. You are closer to a destiny shift than you've ever been. And these 3 prophetic days will determine if you rise or repeat, if you cross over or circle again. Chosen one, you don't have the luxury of ignoring what I'm about to tell you. This isn't just a video to nod at and forget. This is a God's message directly into your alignment window. These 3 prophetic days are not named by man. They're known by heaven. And if you miss them, you don't just miss opportunity. You miss favor. You miss breakthrough. You miss acceleration that would have catapulted you into your next level. That's why the enemy has been distracting you, exhausting you, tempting you to scroll past this moment. Because he knows if you catch this, he loses grip. So hear me with your spiritual ears. This is sacred. This is personal. And this is powerful. You are being positioned to recognize what others overlook, to discern what others dismiss, and to obey what others delay. That's the mark of the chosen one. And these prophetic days will reveal whether you're truly ready to walk in what you've prayed for. But only if you're awake, only if you're listening. If your spirit is stirred already, if you feel something deeper than emotion, something ancient, something divine, comment 777 right now. That's your signal in the spirit that you receive this message, that you're in agreement with the timing, that you are ready, because what comes next isn't just insight, it's instruction, and what you do with it will shape the very trajectory of your next season. Let's step into the mystery. Let's open what's been sealed, and let's begin with a deeper understanding. Why are some days more sacred than others? Why do certain days hold the weight of eternity? Let's go there now. Not every day is created equal in the eyes of the Spirit. While the earth turns steadily, marked by clocks and calendars, the heavens operate by moments, divine, intentional, sacred moments. There are days that are just days, and then there are days that shift destinies, crack open timelines, and shake the invisible foundations of your future. These are what we call prophetic days. Days that were written into your life story before you even took your first breath. Days that carry spiritual alignment, portals of possibility, and encounters that mark your soul forever. Chosen one, you must understand, heaven doesn't operate on human convenience. God doesn't work according to your schedule. He moves according to appointed times. There are days when the veil between heaven and earth thins, days when your spirit is unusually alert, days when you're visited in dreams that leave your heart racing, days when silence speaks louder than noise. These are not just emotional highs. They are heaven's alarms, signals that something sacred is unfolding, and you're being summoned to pay attention. On prophetic days, God's message is released in layers, sometimes through a conversation that seems random, sometimes through a scripture that suddenly feels alive, sometimes through a silence so deep it echoes. These are moments when divine doors open, angels are dispatched, and instructions are handed down from heaven to earth. But if your mind is distracted, if your emotions are heavy, if your spirit is numb, you will miss the very thing you were born to recognize. There are people who prayed for change, cried for purpose, begged God for direction, and then missed their moment because they thought it would come wrapped in fireworks. But prophetic days rarely come with a warning label. They often come quietly, disguised as ordinary. A conversation that pulls you in a new direction. A delay that puts you in the right place at the right time. A nudge to call someone. A dream that won't leave you alone. But you won't recognize it unless your spirit is tuned in. That's why spiritual awakening is essential for the chosen. Let me take you deeper. Do you remember when Moses encountered the burning bush? It was just another day in the desert, tending sheep. But God had already marked that day in eternity. What changed everything was not just the fire, it was Moses' decision to stop and turn aside. He responded. That moment unlocked the call of a deliverer. That day was not random. It was a sacred portal, and Moses walked through it because he was spiritually awake enough to know that something was different. The same is true for you. There are days that are burning bushes in disguise, and if you rush past them, treat them like any other moment, you risk walking away from divine appointments that could have shifted everything. And no, God won't force you. He'll let you miss it. That's the weight of free will. That's the cost of distraction. Some of the greatest destiny shifts come not with thunder, but with stillness. Not with noise, but with clarity. God speaks through the subtle because He's training your sensitivity. And when a chosen one fails to recognize that a prophetic day is unfolding, the consequence is not always immediate pain, it's spiritual delay, it's cycles, it's confusion, it's doors that remain shut until another appointed time, if there is one. Let me give you a spiritual key. Heaven operates in divine patterns. If something keeps circling back every few months or years, a message, a place, a dream, a type of test, it's likely tied to a prophetic window that keeps trying to open. But you won't pass through until you pass the test, until you pause, until you discern, until you obey. And don't think prophetic days are reserved for prophets or mystics. If you're a chosen one, your life is littered with these moments. Some you caught, others you missed. But the more sensitive you become, the more you'll notice the rhythm. Your life isn't random. There's a divine cadence you're being called to walk in. And once you start paying attention, you'll realize that heaven has been speaking all along. You just needed to quiet your mind and open your eyes. So the next time your spirit stirs for no reason, don't ignore it. When you feel like something big is shifting but nothing looks different, don't dismiss it. When dreams become vivid and days feel heavier than usual, pause, pray, ask, listen, because what might feel like just another Tuesday could be a day marked in heaven with your name on it. Let's now look at what happens when a chosen one misses that kind of day. What unfolds when divine timing knocks and no one answers? Let's go into the consequences, the delays and the unseen warfare behind it. Let's talk about what happens when you ignore a prophetic day. When a prophetic day is missed, the world doesn't explode. The sun still rises, your phone still rings, people still post, laugh, work, and move. But something in the spirit shifts, and you feel it. You may not recognize it at first, but soon an emptiness starts to echo. A heaviness comes that doesn't feel like depression. It feels like distance, like something divine was here, and now it's gone. Like you were meant to step forward, but your feet stayed planted. That chosen one is the subtle devastation of missing a day heaven had prepared for you. You prayed for breakthrough. You fasted for clarity. You begged God for alignment. And when the door opened, it was quiet. Maybe disguised, maybe inconvenient, maybe unrecognizable. But it was your moment, your test, your delivery. And you missed it because your attention was on your phone, your stress, your schedule, your pain, your comfort. That's how the enemy works. Not with a loud shout, but with a silent lure. He steals moments by shifting your focus. The spiritual consequence of missing a prophetic day is not always immediate suffering. Often, it's subtle delay. Things that should have moved quickly now crawl. Paths that were meant to be straight begin to wind. You find yourself dealing with the same problems, the same lessons, the same prayers on repeat. Why? Because you missed the pivot. You skipped the upgrade. You stayed in the same place when heaven was calling you higher. Some chosen ones spend years circling wildernesses they were only supposed to pass through. Why? Because the day they were meant to exit, they didn't move. They let fear speak louder than faith. They overthought what required simple obedience. They numbed out when they were supposed to kneel. They dismissed a divine encounter because it didn't look big enough to be God. And now they wonder why they feel stuck, lost, disconnected from their fire. But let's go deeper. You need to understand that every prophetic day comes with an instruction. Sometimes it's speak, sometimes go, sometimes end it, sometimes wait. But always it's a test. Not a test of performance, a test of posture. Will you obey when it's uncomfortable? Will you trust when there's no evidence? Will you act even if no one else understands? Most don't. Most wait for confirmation from people who were never meant to co-sign what God whispered in secret. When you ignore a prophetic day, heaven doesn't get angry, but it does get quiet. You'll notice the silence, the stillness, the lack of new instruction. Why? Because God already spoke. He already showed. And now he's waiting to see if you value what he gave. Heaven doesn't repeat itself for disobedient hearts. Not because God is cruel, but because obedience is how you show you're ready. The devil knows your calendar. He knows the appointed days marked in your life. And just before one arrives, he turns up the distractions. Old cycles resurface. Emotional triggers intensify. Doubt whispers louder. He floods your life with noise so you miss the still small voice. He attacks your body, your mind, your relationships. And if you're not grounded, if you're not aware, if you're not rooted in truth, you'll think it's just a bad day and miss the door. But here's what most don't realize. Every missed prophetic day impacts someone else's timeline too. Your assignment is connected to other people's deliverance. And when you delay, they delay. When you disobey, they suffer. Heaven doesn't operate in isolation. You're part of a divine system, a network of obedience. Your yes could have saved someone's life. Your move could have created a ripple of breakthrough. And when you miss it, the whole system shifts. Routes have to be recalculated, timelines rewritten. But hear me clearly, chosen one, missing a prophetic day doesn't mean you're doomed. God is merciful. He's a master of redemption, but you must acknowledge it. You must repent, not out of guilt, but out of reverence. Reverence for the holy moment you didn't honor. You must become more sensitive, more alert, more surrendered, because he will open another window, but it won't look the same, and it might cost more. This is why spiritual awareness is not a luxury, it's survival. Your ability to discern timing is the difference between expansion and stagnation, between peace and cycles, between purpose and drifting. You don't need more information. You need more attention. God isn't silent. You just weren't listening. And when you finally tune in, you'll realize he's still willing, still waiting, still whispering. But you must be willing to move when he speaks. Now let's step into the first prophetic day, the one that comes with fire, the day when heaven speaks loudest, the day when blueprints from God are released straight into your spirit. Let's talk about the day of revelation. There is a day in every chosen one's life when the heavens open, when what was blurry becomes clear, when what felt distant suddenly feels near. This is the day of revelation, a prophetic moment when God himself deposits vision, instruction, or warning straight into your spirit. It may come through a dream, a sudden insight, a whisper in prayer, or even a conversation that jolts something deep within you. It is not an accident. It is not imagination. It is not just another moment. It is a sacred portal, and how you respond determines everything that comes next. On the day of revelation, God's message is not casual. It's specific. It's heavy. It lingers in your soul long after the moment passes. You might be washing dishes, driving your car, or lying in bed when it hits you. The thought drops in like lightning, and your heart knows this isn't from me. This is higher. This is divine. This is instruction. But here's the tragedy. Most people dismiss it. They say, I'll write it down later. It's probably just my thoughts. I'm too tired. I'll get to it tomorrow. And just like that, the moment is missed. Not because God didn't speak, but because they didn't honor the moment. Chosen one, hear me clearly. When revelation comes, it comes for a reason. God doesn't waste words. If he reveals something to you about your calling, your future, someone's intentions, a warning, or an opportunity, it means there is movement about to occur in the spirit. And if you don't act, the opportunity begins to decay. Revelation carries weight, and when it is not honored, it becomes heavy. It turns into confusion. That's why some of you feel lost. You received a divine message, but you didn't act on it. Now the vision feels cold, the moment feels gone. That's what happens when you delay obedience. The day of revelation is not just about receiving, it's about responding. When God gives you a glimpse into what's coming, he's inviting you to prepare, to posture yourself, to clean up, to let go, to move. And those who respond immediately, who journal it, pray on it, fast with it, act on it, those are the ones who step into divine acceleration. Because God can trust them with secrets. He can trust them with strategy. You want to know why some people rise quickly while others seem stuck for years? It's not luck. It's not talent. It's sensitivity and response. They caught the day of revelation and built something with it. They obeyed when it made no sense. They acted while others hesitated. They wrote the song, launched the channel, quit the job, said yes, said no, because they discerned the weight of the moment. They didn't need a second confirmation because they knew the voice of God when they heard it. Let me tell you, God is still revealing. He's still speaking. But most people are so distracted that they miss it. Their minds are cluttered. Their hearts are noisy. They wait for a booming voice when God is sending clear whispers. And those who have trained their spirit to hear him, they catch it. They feel the shift. They recognize the pulse of heaven, and they move. You must ask yourself, have you been ignoring your revelations? Have you been pushing aside what you felt in your spirit because it was inconvenient? Have you been pretending not to know what you actually know deep down? Because if so, you're not waiting on God. God's been waiting on you. That dream that keeps coming back. That idea that won't leave you alone. That name you keep hearing in prayer. That stirring you keep silencing. That is the day of revelation knocking, and you haven't answered. But here's the grace. The fact that you're hearing this message means another one is coming. God is preparing to release something again. Another download, another blueprint, another strategy. Will you catch it this time? Will you steward it? Will you move? Because he's not going to keep repeating himself forever. If you show that you're not listening, he'll give the assignment to someone else. This is the day that doesn't feel holy. It doesn't feel prophetic. It doesn't come with light or clarity. In fact, it feels heavy, clouded, tiring. This is the day when everything seems to go wrong. The energy is off. People are distant. Triggers are everywhere. You feel misunderstood, unseen, overwhelmed, restless. But this is not chaos. It is not an attack. It is the day of testing, and it is sacred. Heaven is watching, not to punish, but to promote. Chosen one, you must understand every elevation requires examination. Before God increases your platform, influence, or access, he tests your posture, your heart, your obedience. He watches how you respond when nothing goes right, when people offend you, when fear rises, when your prayers feel unanswered. This day comes without warning, and it usually feels like the exact opposite of a breakthrough. But it's not a breakdown, it's a spiritual inspection. God isn't testing you because he doesn't know your heart. He's testing you so you can know what still needs to be refined. What still needs to die? What still makes you waver? The day of testing reveals your weak spots, not to shame you but to strengthen you. It's where your ego gets exposed, your trust gets stretched, your discernment gets sharpened. And if you recognize the moment for what it is, you'll pass through it with grace. But if you misread it, you'll fall back into cycles that delay your next level. The day of testing often shows up when you're on the edge of something great. Right before a destiny door opens, this day arrives. It comes to check your reaction, your attitude, your patience. Will you lash out or stay composed? Will you retreat in fear or step forward in faith? Will you quit or persevere? What you do on this day determines what you are ready to carry. Let me tell you this. Many chosen ones never reach their full potential because they keep failing this test. They spiritualize what is really just unhealed ego. They blame the devil when God was testing their endurance. They run from pressure when pressure was what would have unlocked their next level. They break down on a day when all of heaven was watching to see if they could finally stand. The day of testing doesn't come with fireworks. It often looks like offense, inconvenience, or delay. You'll be tempted to act from emotion instead of wisdom. You may feel rejected, misjudged, or pushed to your limits. But in that moment, remember this: the teacher is always silent during the test. Don't confuse heaven's silence for absence. They're watching, measuring, not your perfection but your posture. Will you respond like a warrior or like a victim? Many spiritual promotions are missed because the chosen one allowed their feelings to override their faith. They got petty, they got reactive, they shut down, they walked away too early, they cursed what was meant to bless them, and as a result, the door stayed closed. The lesson had to repeat. The elevation was postponed. But if you can stay grounded, if you can remain faithful in frustration, if you can hold your peace when everything in you wants to rage, you pass. And when you pass, the acceleration is immediate. God doesn't delay blessings for fun. He delays them when He knows the weight will crush you. He holds back until your character matches your calling. The day of testing exists to align you with the level you've been praying for. This is the day you almost cancel, the event you almost skip, the call you almost don't answer, the place you almost decide not to go. It feels unimportant, even random, but in reality, it's been orchestrated in heaven long before you even knew it was coming. This is the day of divine appointment, a sacred collision point between your obedience and God's strategy. A moment that carries people, opportunities, and encounters that unlock purpose, provision, and direction. But only if you show up. Chosen one, let this truth pierce your heart. Your life is not accidental. The steps you take, the people you meet, the conversations you have, none of it is random when you're walking in divine timing. On this day, God has scheduled an alignment. A moment where your timeline intersects with another destiny. A moment where a door you've been praying for swings open without a sound. But if you miss it, the delay can stretch far beyond what you imagined. The day of divine appointment doesn't come wrapped in thunder. It usually comes in the form of an ordinary meeting. A stranger you feel drawn to. A random encounter that leaves you shaken. A conversation that awakens something inside you. This is God's style. He hides the extraordinary in the ordinary, and only those who are spiritually awake will recognize what's really happening. Let's be real. Many miss this day because they don't trust their own spiritual nudge. They feel the pull to go, to move, to say yes, but they overthink it. They analyze it. They wait for a logical explanation when all they need is obedience. The day of divine appointment often bypasses logic. It requires trust, and when you don't move, you miss what was waiting for you on the other side of yes. This day is about positioning. You must be in the right place, at the right time, with the right posture. And often, it won't feel special. In fact, you may feel tired, irritated, or even tempted to stay home. That's how the enemy works. He makes the holy feel optional. He makes the door look invisible. But when you're tuned in, you'll know, your spirit will whisper, "This is it." And that whisper is God's message, saying, "Pay attention. Destiny is near." Think back to the times you met someone who changed your life. A mentor, a partner, a friend, even a stranger with a timely word. Most likely it happened when you weren't planning it. That's the power of divine appointments. They don't fit your calendar, they fit your calling. And when you show up with a surrendered heart, the door opens without you having to knock. Chosen one, prophetic days do not announce themselves. They don't wait until your life feels calm, until your emotions are stable, or until your schedule is clear. They arrive like holy interruptions, unplanned in the natural, but perfectly timed in the spirit. And whether you receive or miss what they carry depends entirely on one thing: your readiness. This is why preparation is not optional for the awakened. It is the lifestyle of those who walk in alignment. To prepare for a prophetic day, you must first understand the nature of the spiritual realm. God doesn't pour oil on chaos. He doesn't release blueprints into minds that are filled with distraction. He doesn't speak deep truths to hearts that are hardened by bitterness or ego. That's why the first step in preparation is clearing the noise. You must make space, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because a cluttered soul cannot carry clarity. If your days are consumed with scrolling, comparing, reacting, rushing, and doubting, how will you hear the still, small voice of God? You won't. Not because God isn't speaking, but because your spirit is not tuned in. The frequency of heaven requires focus. It requires intentionality. If you're going to catch these sacred portals, you must live like someone who is expecting God's message at any moment. This is why fasting is powerful. It's not about starving your body, it's about starving your distractions. Fasting sharpens your awareness, silences the noise, and positions you to hear what others can't. It's a preparation tool, a way to say, I'm serious, I'm open, I'm listening. Even a single day of fasting can shift your spirit back into alignment. Prayer must also become your rhythm, not just when you need something, but when you don't. Prophetic days require you to be spiritually hydrated, not dehydrated. And prayer is the water of the soul. If you only pray during crisis, you won't recognize divine moments when they show up quietly. Your preparation must include deep, consistent communion, where you're not just talking, but listening. Your emotional posture matters too. Bitterness, offense, and resentment block flow. If you want to be ready for what's coming, you must release what's behind you. Prophetic alignment requires a clean heart, a heart that's willing to forgive quickly, let go deeply, and move forward freely. God doesn't send destiny to those clinging to dead weight. Release is preparation. And yes, solitude is vital. You cannot stay spiritually sensitive if you're always surrounded by noise, people's opinions, emotional drama, mindless conversations. You need silence, space, moments to sit with your own soul and feel what's happening in the unseen. Solitude is where God often reveals his timing, where he prepares you before the day even arrives. You'll begin to sense things before they happen, not because you're psychic, but because you're positioned. You also need to keep your house in order, your physical space. God is drawn to order, to stewardship. If your environment is chaotic, it affects your ability to host revelation. Clean your space. Make room for spiritual flow. Light a candle. Play worship. Create an atmosphere that welcomes the presence of God. These simple acts are not ritual. They are reverence. Prophetic days don't always come with thunder. They rarely walk in the room wearing a crown or shouting your name. More often they arrive wrapped in silence, in stillness, in subtle shifts. And if you're not spiritually awake, you'll miss them. You'll call it a weird day, a quiet day, a hard day, but in reality, it's a divine appointment unfolding in real time. The key is learning to recognize the signs that you're already inside the moment that heaven marked for you. Chosen one, your spirit knows before your mind does. When you're in a prophetic day, there's a stirring beneath the surface. You feel a weight, not a burden, but a holy pressure. A sense that something is shifting, even if you can't name it. You feel the atmosphere around you is different. Time feels slower, sharper. People respond to you differently. Conversations carry more meaning. It's as if heaven is holding its breath, watching to see what you'll do. You'll notice strange alignments. A verse shows up multiple times. A number repeats itself over and over. A dream from weeks ago suddenly makes sense. Someone says something that hits you like a sword. A stranger delivers a sentence that feels like it was meant just for you. These aren't coincidences. They are confirmations. God is speaking, and your discernment is being tested. Sometimes, everything will feel off. Not because something is wrong, but because something is about to be made right. You might feel unsettled, restless, emotional. You may feel unusually sensitive or introspective. That's the spirit realm drawing your attention inward. God is trying to get you to pause, to listen, to look deeper, because the moment is here and it carries weight. This is what spiritual alignment feels like in real time. During prophetic days, emotions intensify, not in a chaotic way, but in a revealing way. You may find yourself crying without knowing why. You may feel joy bubbling up for no reason. Old memories may surface, dreams may return. This is your spirit processing what the soul cannot yet comprehend. It is the manifestation of revelation catching up with your awareness. You'll also find yourself pulled towards certain actions, a sudden urge to reach out to someone, a deep need to isolate and pray, a compulsion to write, to sing, to move, to speak. Don't dismiss it. Obedience in these moments releases what has been locked in the spirit. The smallest yes during a prophetic day can break open a flood of favor. Don't ignore the pull. Follow it. Resistance is another sign. Everything will try to keep you from recognizing the day. Your phone will distract you. People will demand your attention. Emotions will rise. Old patterns will flare up. This is spiritual warfare, trying to cloak a spiritual window. Don't fall for it. Still your soul. Quiet your surroundings. Ask God directly. Is this one of those days? He will confirm it. Not always with words, but with a knowing. You'll feel it settle in your bones. You may also feel like you're standing at a crossroads. A decision is before you. A conversation you've been avoiding. A door you've been too scared to open. These moments of decision are not random. Prophetic days are often tied to obedience. And if you've been wrestling with something in your spirit, this could be the moment you were being prepared for. The moment where everything pivots, if you move in faith. Some of you are already in one of these days. That's why this message hits differently. That's why your heart is pounding, your mind is focused, your eyes are burning. You recognize the signs. This is your spirit awakening to divine timing. You're not waiting for the moment. You are already inside it. And now it's time to respond. Chosen one, you didn't find this message. This message found you. It came looking for you in the very moment your spirit was ready to receive it. You may not have felt ready in your mind, but your soul has been crying out for direction, for confirmation, for a word from God, and this is that word. This is God's message. This is your divine alignment. And now, what you do with it determines everything. You have just been shown the 3 prophetic days that can shift the entire trajectory of your destiny. The day of revelation, when heaven speaks directly to your spirit with divine blueprints. The day of testing, when everything feels off, but heaven is watching how you respond. And the day of divine appointment, when a moment disguised as ordinary carries a connection that unlocks your purpose. These are not ideas, they are realities. Timed, specific, sacred. But here is the truth that separates those who rise from those who repeat. Revelation without response is rebellion. To know and not move is to choose delay. To feel the weight of divine timing and still ignore the instruction is to forfeit the very shift you've been praying for. God has done his part. He revealed the days. He gave you the keys. Now heaven is watching to see what you'll do. Don't wait for a feeling. Don't wait for someone else's approval. Don't scroll past this moment as if it were just another video. This is an activation moment. This is your altar, right here, right now, and it requires your decision. Will you obey when it's quiet? Will you move when it's hard? Will you act even when it's inconvenient? Because your next season is not waiting on God, it's waiting on your obedience. Obedience is not always glamorous. It's often hidden. It may look like fasting when no one else is, praying when you feel dry, leaving something that feels safe, saying yes to something that terrifies your flesh. But that's the narrow road. That's the path of the chosen. And the ones who choose it without hesitation are the ones who walk in power, clarity, and favor that others can't explain. You've been asking God for change, for purpose, for the next level, and heaven's answer is simple. Alignment comes through action. You must live like someone who believes the prophetic days are real. That means preparing, watching, moving. It means checking your posture every morning and asking, am I in one of those days today? Because the moment you stop treating your days like random moments, they begin to open up like doors.